Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another Wildcat Wednesday with Bench Talk. I am here with Eric, who's the owner-operator of Varminter Magazine and also the Small Caliber Shop. And we're going to be talking about the 24 Varminter. Eric, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Doing great. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Would you mind kind of giving the listeners a history of the 24 Varminter cartridge?
Sure. So the 24 Varminter started out as the 24 GPC. It was created by a company named Mad Dog Weapon Systems. And they created a line of general purpose cartridges, which is why you have the name GPC. And basically it's based off the 6.8 SPC. And there's, some necking down, little trimming, two steps basically, and you're ready to go on a lot of their things. And Mad Dog is known for their 277 Wolverine, which we used years ago on deer hunts and stuff like that. It's an awesome cartridge. So when we started to get into more of the 6mm in the AR-15 platform, which we hunt with, Cash Carlson, who's one of my writers, he was looking at the 24 Varminter at the same time. The 24 GPC. And at the same time, I was looking at their 20 GPC. Well, Cash just absolutely loved the 24 GPC. Ended up getting one myself, and it just became a staple for any kind of varmint hunting we did, whether it be predator or colony varmints like rock chucks, ground squirrels, prairie dogs, things like that. All the way up into medium-sized game. I've shot deer with it, and here in Idaho and in Texas, and I used it for hog hunting in Texas as well. It's just a very versatile cartridge. So what happened is after a few years, we just approached Mad Dog and said, listen, we would like to buy the rights to what was now the 24 Varminter, because we actually adopted the cartridge and they took our Varminter name for it, which we just thought was awesome. So we now have the 24 Varminter. And right now where it sits is we are currently have about 10 barrels out with a bunch of guys who are very good at reloading, developing loads, and working with wildcats. So we're coming to the point where we're going to be releasing that load data, as well as opening up sales for barrels, dies, everything in between. So we already have 60 barrels on the 16, 18, and 20-inch configuration, all done, ready to go. We've been using these for our load data. And then we have stacks of Hornady dies. They're custom dies through the Hornady custom shop, and they are 24 Varminter dies. And basically, we're just going from there.
No, that's awesome. That sounds super exciting. And I guess a couple quick questions. What are the barrel twists you're going with for the barrels that you guys have?
We're sticking with 1 and 8. And the reason why we're sticking with 1 and 8 is there's already this 6 arc that's out there, along with some other ones. And they all tend to focus on a traditional heavy projectile with BC and all that, because they're all shooting competitions. Well, we're hunters, we're varmint hunters, predator hunters. So we really want a twist that can handle heavy. Like I've gone up to 90 grain. The deer that I shot here in Idaho, I shot with a 90 grain Sierra Tip Game King, and it was 321 yards and just absolutely smoked it. And then we also go all the way down to about 55 grain, which I've used those for predator and for like prairie dog hunting, and it is absolutely devastating. Absolutely. Either the 55 grain Nosser ballistic tip or the Sierra Blitz King, which is now the Varmint King projectiles. Those are just fantastic. And even this is old data that we did with just H335, but out of a 20-inch barrel, we're over 3,700 feet per second. We're about 3,702 when our original testing was going on. We have found that we're actually slightly faster right now, but as anybody who hand loads, anybody who knows about developing loads, you have to get a certain amount of rounds through the barrel because it'll speed up. So we're actually past that point. So that's why we're doing load development now, and we're seeing just some fantastic results.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I was looking at some of the data you guys had put out when you guys had originally adopted the cartridge from Mad Dog, and yeah, I mean, looking at that and seeing a 55 grain Nosler Blitzking at the time going 3,700 feet a second, and that was the data that was put out then. That's I mean, that's incredible.
It's quite a number on like prairie dogs and rock chucks and stuff. I actually on YouTube hates us, so I like to hit them a little bit with little short videos. But I actually published a short video a couple of days ago where we get a triple on prairie dogs and basically another one. And I mean, the devastation is just crazy. And listen, you know, us varmint hunters, I'm going to speak to, well, it goes into predator hunting a little bit, but I'm going to speak mainly to the colony varmints. When I say colony varmints, those are varmints that are in the rodent category, and they all live together. They live in the same areas, prairie dogs, brown squirrels, things like that. We strive to do our best to make the quickest, cleanest kill we possibly can. And there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, you're cruel, you're this and that. Well, they have no idea the amount of time and energy to, you know, pick cartridges that do that job, as well as being able to load cartridges that are accurate to make lethal shots that put them out immediately. And this cartridge just does it all. It really does, out of an AR-15. And we are looking at bolt actions, and I can get into that in a little bit because we already have the ball rolling on some of that stuff. But no, the AR was what this was built for, and for accuracy and just for knocking the stuff out. So in the varmint hunting world, speed kills. You know, yes, you've got energy, but speed, obviously accuracy before anything, but speed kills. It just dumps every bit of that energy into the varmint you're shooting with a projectile that's correct for that. When I say correct for that, meaning a varmint type projectile that's built for varmint hunting or for fast explosion with a thin jacket, etc.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like the 24 Varminter excels at doing that with a variety of those bullets, not just the very light for caliber 55s or 58s. I mean, you guys are running all the way up to, you guys have data for the 108 ELDMs, which is super impressive. What mags are you guys using, and I guess cartridge overall length does the parameters of the 24 Varminter have to stay in?
So basically, the way it is right now, and let me just say that the heavy projectiles, again, some guys are looking at using those. In fact, we have reamers, we have everything. So if people want a different twist rate, you know, we're going to have that available through a gunsmith that we work with. But when it comes down to, you know, magazines and everything, so the 6.8 SPC, you have the 223. Everybody knows 223, 223 mag. Then you have the 6.5 Grendel, which is now also the 6 arc and the 22 arc. And then you have the 6.8 magazine. So the 6.8 magazine is a little bit bigger, it's wider, obviously standard to AR-15s. So the space we have in there is pretty good, but we're not looking to push your bullet out real far. I mean, we do to mag length. You can do it at that point, which is standard all the way through. Our biggest thing is when we went ahead and looked at this originally, we wanted to make sure that the chamber specs did not have a whole bunch of free bore. So one of the issues that, and I love the 22 arc, don't get me wrong. I shot the Wildcat, and I still do shoot the Wildcat that was before the 22 arc, which was the 22 Grendel. Well, the 22 Grendel chamber specs, I'm using this for an example. Yeah. 22 Grendel chamber specs are basically meant for light bullets all the way up to heavies. Never been a problem. You know, twist rate is the only thing you need to be concerned with, but most of the time, guys can shoot 53s all the way up to like 105s without any issues. And then Hornady came along, they changed the chamber specs where they added a bunch of free bore. Well, if you're looking for accuracy, you want to be very careful with that, because when you, let's say, have a 60 grain nozzle ballistic tip. I'll throw that one out there. And you're going ahead and loading it in the 22 ARC, you're going to have a huge jump to the lance. And most of the guys out there that shoot bolt actions, I mean, we know just jam it in the lance. That's where we do. We get it as close as we can and then work back from there, always watching our pressures and stuff like that. But in the AR-15, it's difficult because you are limited by mag length. But because our free bore is, just very standard and not extended for big, long, heavy bullets, we do fine.
Okay. No, that's awesome to know.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it does.
Matt, the weeds a little too much.
No, I was actually going to ask about the free bore of the cartridge design, so I was actually really happy that you mentioned that as well. That's a good thing to know for listeners, especially when looking at this, right? This is a cartridge that would be probably thought of when you're looking at, your 6 ARC or your 22 ARC or another AR-15 platform that you can go with for, a hunting, self-defense, long-range shooting application. Those little 60 grain, did you say they were the 60 grain tip game kings or tip match kings when you were referencing the 22 ARC?
22 ARC, we were actually talking, I mentioned the 60 grain ballistic tip, which has been a long-time favorite. Same with the 60 grain Hornady, things like that. I have used other projectiles in the 22 ARC that work fine. It's just I do have to really get them out there. And then I have a more difficult time coming up with a accurate load based on the lighter bullets I use.
Yeah,
and
having
a
ton of jumps.
I mean, some guys don't have any problem with it. What I've run into and most of the factory AR-15 barrels that we received is I do. And then vice versa on the other side, when I shoot one of my 22 Grendels, in fact, we got about 10 barrels. We all shoot them, all my guys and everything like that. We actually run into issues with like the Hornady 75 grain ELD-M, the match ammo, the factory ammo, where we have to actually set back the bullets for a different cartridge overall length. So when I say set back, people are going to immediately say, oh, the shoulders is that? No, I mean, basically drop that projectile down a little bit farther into that case, which is difficult because a lot of those loads are very, very compressed. So you get spring back and such. But
oh, wow. I had no idea.
It makes it worthwhile because it makes it super accurate. And perfect example of that is that, what was I using? Let me look at something real quick. I apologize. So we were badger hunting, and this was probably about 2 weeks ago or so. And I have a custom, Howa Mini Action custom built 22 ARC built by Upriver Precision Arms. And basically, I'm using that factory ammo. So I go ahead and I have to resize the factory ammo for the cartridge overall length. That's what I mean by resize. And for consistent ogive bullet depth. So anyways, I was using that and I popped a badger at 697 yards. This was after SHOT Show. We hunted on the way home. And it did the job. And that was with the Hornady factory ammo, but it had to be set, the bullet had to be set into the cartridge a little bit more.
That's badass. Not just for the rifle stuff, but the one of the things you just mentioned about driving home from a trip and hunting on the way home.
Oh yeah,
I've wanted to do that. I've wanted to do that so many times.
11 badgers, about 200 ground squirrels. We did it in the great state of Nevada. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds like it'd be a great time. And yeah, I was asking about what 60 grain bullet you were talking about because I've messed around with the 60 grain Sierra Match Kings, and they're amazing even in a 223 platform. But all the stuff about the free bore for the 22 ARC versus the 22 Grendel, super good information. And that's cool to know that you guys actually are still shooting 22 ARC ammunition in your 22 Grendels, and knowing that you guys just have to basically change your seating depth. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
And that's
sure.
on some of them. Some of them we don't need to, but I've tried the 62s and stuff like that. They just don't shoot as accurately as that 75. The 75. And I'll tell you what, I have for the longest. I know we're getting kind of off on a little side subject.
Oh,
For
it's
the
okay.
longest time, I have been anti match bullets for hunting. And I'll tell you what, that 75 grain ELDM has changed my mind about that. It is absolutely wicked. And then we use also the 77 grain. It's a hybrid match hunting bullet from meat ammunition, and that's a cool little cartridge or a projectile that we use in the 22 caliber stuff too. But when it comes to the 24 Varmer, so we basically our gamut that we're running most of the time are the 55 grain Sierra Blitz Kings, which are now called the Varmint King. They just made that name change at SHOT Show. And then the 55 grain Nostra ballistic tip, the 58 grain V Maxes, which are a great bullet, as well as the 70 grain Nostra ballistic tip, which I used down in Texas this last time where I killed a deer and a hog with that, and it performed fantastically. And then the 75 grain V Max, another one of those good ones, and then the 80 grain Nostra ballistic tip. And then again, I mentioned the 90 grain tip Game King.
Yeah, that 90 grain bullet seems like it'd be a really fun one, especially for long range guys. The BC on that 90 grain is like .5 for a G1 BC, which is great, and getting that thing almost at 3,000 feet a second is super impressive.
Yeah. And it on the Game King one, because there's a Match King and the Game King. The Game King, I
Right.
used it for predator calling. I used it to kill that deer, but I also used it for predator calling for about 2 years and absolutely smoked everything. Nothing moved. They were just dead right there. It was awesome. I had no runoffs, nothing. I was using it a lot for night calling as well, because you don't want them to run off, or if you happen to take a shot that's not perfect because it's too blurry out there because it's glowing white or deep black, depending on which setting you're at, you just want to be able to have that bullet knock the crap out of it, and it does. So
Yeah, if I guess if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask you a quick question about those 90 grain tip Game Kings. I was looking at buying a bunch of those recently, and funny enough, I was wondering how they perform on game. Any chance you ever shot a coyote, or when you shot like a deer with it? Did you guys do like a necropsy or see one of the bullets? Do they fragment? Do they mushroom? I was kind of curious about that, and I haven't found anything online.
well, I didn't on the deer because we did the no gut method on that one. However, the coyotes definitely. I pulled them apart. I had videos up. YouTube yanked them because they apparently don't like doing any kind of like internal work on critters on YouTube.
Yeah.
But no, it performed very well. Um, Obviously, small entrance. Exit was maybe about the size. I had somewhere the size of a fist, all the way down to like a $half size. But every single one of them broke bone, broke shoulders, broke everything without any issues at all. It just really hit them hard. And I was using my 20-inch barrel at the time, so I'm right at 2,900 feet per second. It's 2898 or something like that. And it was absolutely devastating. So I wouldn't hesitate shooting coyotes even longer range with that. I wouldn't hesitate shooting medium-sized game like antelope or deer. And hogs, it just, kills the crap out of them.
Yeah, I bet it would. I mean, that's basically 243 velocities out of an AR platform, which is awesome. And I'm guessing, and I just forgot to ask, but I'm guessing for mags, you guys have 20 and 30 rounders. I'm not completely familiar with the 6.8 SPC mags.
They are available. 20 round is the most popular for that. However, we just use 10 rounders. That's what we do because we hunt and don't want anything big sticking out. If somebody wants to do competition or whatever with that, or wants to do longer range shooting and such, I'd actually recommend some of the other cartridges out there. The 6 Arc is an absolutely fantastic cartridge. It just has cartridge limitations when it comes to the capacity of the cartridge. And that's one of the issues we don't run into with this. We don't have to go to a max compressed load to reach a lot of the stuff we're doing. The numbers that we put up were just standard loads. We didn't push them very hot. We didn't do anything like that. We will have more information about that being published very soon. They'll be on Varminter, but they'll also be on our small caliber forum, which is just smallcaliberforum.com.
And some of the information we'll make sure it's attached below in the description. What powder are you guys primarily using? Talking about that, since we were talking about kind of the compressed loads that you may find in the 22 arc and 6 arc.
You know what? We are using actually just a whole bunch of different powders right now. So unfortunately, one of the greatest powders that work in this was AR Comp, and you cannot get a hold of AR Comp right now. I have a bunch, but since I'm testing different loads, I tend to stay away from that. But no, we're doing some, like I said, H335, Stay-Ball Match, everything. I mean, pretty much everything out there that anybody would be using for this 6 arc would work fantastically in this cartridge. So you don't have to be super picky as far as what you choose. Just choose something that reaches how can I say it? Basically, there's guys out there, let me explain it a little bit. There's guys out there that they want speed first. It's all about speed. I understand that, I get that. They want to start with the fastest that they can shoot, so they pick a powder for that, and then they work on their accuracy. I totally get that. Speed kills, speed makes things flatter shooting, everything. I tend to go with speed, but accuracy is number one. So I shoot, as you probably know, I shoot 220 Swift, I shoot 17 Remington. Those are two of the fastest cartridges on earth. 22 Creedmoor with lighter bullets I shoot with a 1-in-8 twist. So I'm shooting stuff pretty fast, but I don't hit those levels of velocity that a lot of guys strive for. When I find something in the general vicinity of the velocity that I feel the cartridge is capable of, I will go with the most accurate, even if it's a little bit slower than I could go. Because I'll tell you what, a coyote does not care about 200 feet per second difference. They don't give a damn.
It's always so fun to chase velocity, though. And I'm guilty of that.
I shoot so many 17 centerfires.
Yeah.
We got to get on the 17.556 KK one day.
I know. I literally was thinking about asking you about that, because I was thinking about cool Wildcats, and I was like the 17.556, and I was like, I know I can ask Eric about it. And again, for all of you who aren't familiar, Eric is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to Wildcats, and basically all cartridges, or the majority of cartridges, are related to varmint hunting. So for me, previously, prior to having my Bench Talk page, I would bother Eric and Cash Carlson, one of his writers, on Facebook pretty often about different cartridges that they were running, asking questions, stuff like that. So Eric is a plethora of knowledge when it comes to this stuff, and so the side conversations, there's been previous back and forth on stuff. That's why I'm looking forward to having these conversations so much.
Yeah, definitely. And I enjoy it. I just absolutely love it. And what I like most about it is a lot of people, and that's why I like that you have this going, that you're putting this out there, because a lot of people, they use the standard cartridges and they get bored. Then they want to tinker. And that also couples with the fact that there's a lot of younger people, and I don't mean like young, but people that are coming up whose grandparents, grandfathers in particular, are starting to give them guns. Say, hey, I had this years ago, decades ago. It's something interesting. Here you go. Here's a 17 Fireball, or here's a 223 Ackley improved, or something like that. These guys get these, and to their generation's credit, they turn around and get online and say, I want to do something with this. This has got to be the coolest thing ever. My grandpa showed me pictures of groundhogs that he was shooting with a big long scope on it, and all this stuff like that. And to me, I just absolutely love when people who have not been wildcatting get into it. But every one of us, just so you know, everyone who shoots a factory cartridge out there has shot a Wildcat. There are companies out there that's all they do is they take Wildcats and turn them into semi-spec factory cartridges. They may add a little bit of tweaks to it to make it their own, but when it boils down to it, it is a Wildcat cartridge,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. That's a good thing for the Wildcat. But you look at, for a perfect example is the 22250. 22250 came out in the 60s, was released by Remington. For decades was the 22 Varminter. And then when Winchester decided to kind of slow down on the 220 Swift and release the 225 Winchester back in 1964, Remington said, we're going to adopt this cartridge and make it the 22250. And there's so much history around the 22250 that people don't know. They don't realize it's that old of a cartridge. And obviously people use it today. It's very, very popular. So yeah. And that's why things like the 24 Varminter, we wanted to pick, when we were looking around, one of the things we really wanted to look at is how easy is it to make brass? Because it's one thing when you have a steady amount of brass coming in where you could do the minimum stuff to it, basically resize, load it, and you're ready to go. That's great. When a cartridge reaches that level, that's great or anything. But if it's one of those cartridges that is not widely adopted, semi-spec, but also widely adopted by all the major manufacturers, especially the brass manufacturers, the Federals, the CCI, things like that, you run into issues. You run into issues because there might be shortages. And we all saw that during the whole COVID garbage,
Yes.
that there was
That's still
shortages
not
on a
over.
lot of stuff. Well, this is something that's a standard cartridge, 6.8 SPC, still very popular. A lot of guys use that cartridge for hog, for deer, things like that. But it's readily available, and it takes literally a resize, a quick trim, and you're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to go. So, and we will be offering brass that's available as well. But we don't want people to think that this is such a difficult cartridge to get going that they can't just make it on their own. Buy a bag of 6.8 SPC, again, using our dies. We'll give you where to set it up, the length where you set your false shoulder, boom, run it through the die, run it through a trimmer, take off a little bit, and again, you're ready to load. Camphor deburr, and you're ready to go.
Have you guys done any forming with the basic 6.8 SPC brass from Starline? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good to know. I mean, normally when I'm talking to guys about stuff like this, I harp on looking at, component availability. But the other thing that you hit on of what are the steps to actually, either process the brass or to form the brass for the cartridge, you're right. That does matter a ton. And I also haven't come across many cartridges that take, like you mentioned a second ago, 5 different steps. Right, I'm shooting normally my Ackley cartridges, which are, depending on the brass, maybe a single step to either neck down or neck up a case. But yeah, no, that's all stuff that's really, really good to keep in mind. Is that rifle fun to shoot though? The 20 that 20 cal.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. I shot a couple Badgers with it during that trip I was mentioning before. I shot a whole bunch of ground squirrels. It is a lot of fun. It was just one of those Grail cartridges that I wanted, and I wish that. I mean, granted, we have the 204 Ruger, which is an awesome cartridge. Um, but man, it's just fun shooting such a tiny cartridge with so little powder, and it just zips along it. The ones I'm shooting are fireform loads because they're just doing the final step to fireform to the chamber, and they're only running like 3,500 feet per second or so. But man, they're devastating, absolutely devastating.
And what grain of bullet is that?
32 grain.
Okay, so I mean that's still pretty respectable weight for a 20 cal. I mean you guys aren't running the 55 grain burgers, but still I think the next heaviest is like the 35 grain VMAX. So I mean you guys are still up that upper threshold.
Yeah, well, you can go to. I'm going to shoot 39s out of this at some point, probably for Predators, because that's what we use for Predator.
Uh
And
huh.
Sierra, their Blitz King, which again I keep mentioning, this is now the Varmint King, but that one
They
as
named it
well as
after
the
you guys.
Spear, 39 grain hollow point. And Spear is one of those projectiles that folks need to look at. They're dirt cheap, and they come in some great weights. And for us, they perform very, very well, both at the range and in the field. So, but we'll have more on that stuff over on Varminter.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. If you guys want to hear more about it, please feel free to go check out the Varminter Magazine, and you guys can see more articles that are put out by Eric and some of his other writers. I guess back to the 24 Varminter. For the guys that are out doing testing right now, I guess are they primarily all sticking with like dedicated bullet weights, or is it just kind of hey for those 10 guys who are out doing testing, you guys shoot it and just kind of report back on what's going on?
You know what? They're using bullet weights and just kind of flipping back and forth. We've got one guy that's a long range guy, so he's pushing some heavier bullets. He's practicing with those, testing those, doing all that stuff. And then everything in between, we're all just using different projectiles and coming up with some different loads and such. And that actually brings me into the other part that I was going to discuss before, and I forgot: bolt action rifles.
Oh
So
yeah.
in doing this, there's a lot of people who want bolt action rifles, either with a different twist that they can shoot heavier projectiles, or just a standard twist that we do. Well, we have already set up with Uinta Precision. They will be getting, our dies, or I'm sorry, our reamers, and they're going to be going ahead and cutting their bolt action barrels for their system. Which, if you've never heard of the Uinta system for bolt action, it's a true bolt action that fits on top of your AR-15 lower, and it's absolutely fantastic. It is so accurate. So that is a company, we love these guys. They will pretty much do anything for anybody. It's not something where you have to sit there and beg them and all that with some of these bigger companies. They will look at it and they will put it into something that is going to be accurate. And I appreciate that stuff that they do. They do ARs too, but we're doing our own AR barrels and such. So they'll be focusing on the bolt action uppers, chambered in 24 Varmer. And then we also have a gunsmith that brought that up who will be working on some options. Right now we're leaning towards the Savage, like their 110 action in there, because there are bolt heads available. The number one thing is, there's not a lot of 6.8 bolt actions out there. So they're the only ones that were out there for a time were the 6.8. Those are very hard to find now. But it was also the 224 Valkyrie. That's built off a 6.8. So finding that right now is very difficult, but Savage has something where you can swap the bolt head out, and that is the route we're looking at right now. But this won't be just your standard Savage. This will be something where the gunsmith goes through it, accurizes it, does all that stuff, and boom, you've got a gun. And then eventually we'll be talking to Howa about maybe doing something that we can work with. So we haven't forgotten about the bolt action, guys. And at that point, our numbers are going to be off the charts, because when you can handle more pressures, because one thing I want everybody to understand, no matter what cartridge you shoot, no matter what round you shoot, you need to be very careful, because AR-15s have a certain pressure level that you don't want to go over consistently, especially if you're shooting forged, uppers. And there's other things out there that can plague this stuff. Nosler, their 22 Nosler was an absolute fantastic round. There was one problem with it. It had a rebated rim, and the rebated rim just actually got torn up when you're shooting this at speeds that you were trying to meet, which would give you the best performance out of that particular cartridge. So keep that in mind too, but be careful. Watch your pressures. A lot of people don't understand that, and they just go by book pressures and then go above. Well, every gun, depending on how far out you seat your bullet, et cetera, can cause pressure spikes and pressure differences. So be careful. I just had to throw that in there. It's kind of like a caveat for folks. I try to explain stuff, because wildcatting is definitely fun, but there's a lot of little things you got to look for.
No, it's a good point. I mean, it's something I'm having to think about and look into myself, since I just got my first AR platform, and I really haven't reloaded for anything for an AR platform. It's all been bolt gun stuff, and right, that's pretty simple. And really bad case scenario, right? You may pop a primer, pierce a primer, something like that, but you have a bad day reloading on an AR platform and have a really hot case, you may actually pop your whole upper receiver, which would be really, really bad day.
Yep. Definitely always wear eye protection.
Yes, definitely. So Eric, some of the stuff that you guys are going to be having come out about the 24 Varminter cartridge, like the load data, potential sales coming up. I guess what time frame are you guys looking at? Later on in 2026?
No, we're looking at, this is all going to be coming out here within the next 3 weeks. So
oh wow!
We want it available for people to start shooting varmints, and then really getting them dialed in, ready for predator season.
That's awesome.
So we've got everything in hand already, the dies, the barrels, all that. The only thing we're working on is base load data. We already have videos that we run on how to form the brass. If need be, we already have plenty of brass in, ready to go as well. That if people just want to basically load from there, they can. It's all ready to go. We just want to make sure that people get a good start when it comes to load data, because that's super important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you don't have any load data, you're kind of dead in the water, right? Then it's just a bunch of test and check and hope and pray you don't blow yourself up.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing we saw, and it came out with the 22 arc. I think the 22 arc, the 6 arc a little bit. I mean, the 6 arc, I will say, was a bit more, but the 22 arc really stood out as the cartridge that showed a lot of longtime hand loaders that there were so many new people stepping into this, hobby, I'll call it. And the issue is the 22 arc was an interesting creature to load. So a lot of new guys got into it. They didn't come up with the numbers that were published by Hornady, which Hornady has, they've got this way of just comparing it. You mentioned before that this is like a 243 in numbers. Yes and no, it can be, but I mean, 243, a 55 grain in a bolt action rifle or an AR-10, you're getting close to 4,000 feet per second, no problem. And so all I do is I caution people, if you want to get into this, we're going to ask you some questions. We're going to make sure that you're capable of hand loading for this. We want to make sure that you know what you're doing, because number one, we want you to enjoy it, not be so frustrated trying to hand load loads for this. And then two is we want to make sure that anyone who uses this doesn't push it beyond where it's supposed to be at. You know, if you're not happy with the numbers, go for it. Go find something else, especially if you're in a bolt action, go to a 6-speed 243. Not a problem. And I say that to everybody, people who are looking at the 6-arc and other cartridges like that. If you really want an AR and you want to push that speed, go with a longer barrel. You know, get every bit you can out of it. And all of our testing has been, you know, the max barrel length has been 20-inch. Most of the companies out there do this stuff with 24-inch, just to bump up their numbers a little bit. But again, we want people to understand that this thing will kill at the velocities that are safe and well below, you know, any pressures that may cause issues. It'll do the job. You don't need to pack it full of powder and crunch it down and do all that stuff. It will do the job. You'll be able to save your brass. It won't come up mangled and everything like that. So.
Yeah, no, that's good to know for guys. And I mean, for people who aren't into reloading, right, running cartridges at top pressures all the time isn't good, right? On hot days, you end up getting pressure spikes and all kinds of other stuff. So running it at a reasonable pressure to get these velocities, and that's the way you guys are publishing the data, is awesome. You never want to pick a case and have to step on it to, you know, get what you want out of it. So that's awesome, the way you guys are looking at the 24 Varminter. I'm really excited about it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the data that you guys get.
You and I definitely need to get together. We had mentioned before this started that getting a hunt together. I can come out to you, or you can come out here. We can do something where we meet in between, whatever. But I mean, there's definitely, if you see it out in the field and you see it, you know, in action, you're going to be impressed. Not one person that shot this rifle, okay, has shot it and not been thoroughly impressed by it. And, you know, that goes for guys who are shooting deer and hog, and that goes for people who are just shooting varmints like that. It's just extremely impressive. And that's not just saying because we now own it and, you know, Cash and I are pushing it and all this stuff like that. It's something that we're true believers in getting the best tools out there for varmint hunting. And, you know, we just feel this is one of those tools.
Yeah, and I like hearing your guys' point of view on it. I do. And I think the listeners will enjoy that as well. I had one more question, or I guess a couple clarifying questions really quick. For any weird things to look at when you're picking primers for loading this? I mean, granted, it's going to be small rifle primers, but are you guys running
I mean, CCI 41s are good because, you know, you want the harder cup with all AR-15s. But again, you know, something like these are all small primers. Again, something like a Remington 7.5, you know, things like that you can use, not a problem. I don't think we've ever pushed it so hard where we get Pierce primers, but just be aware if you're shooting, you know, if you're loading in the wintertime for max loads and you're in June, let's say in, I don't know, Nevada, shooting ground squirrels before they go down, and you're shooting that same load, just be careful. You know, you slap a suppressor on there on top of that, building even more pressure, be careful.
Yes, which is exactly what I was trying to reference earlier.
Yeah,
and
so
it'd be
nothing special out of it. It's just it's a normal cartridge.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it in action. I hope that we can make that hunt happen. Is Cash in between you and I? I was going to say it'd be cool.
He's east of me about 2 hours, so he's not far. So we could actually, you know, meet up here or whatever. He doesn't have a lot of time because his work and he's got a kid and all that stuff. But you know, definitely if it's something where even if you want to just fly out here, which I don't know from your area how long it would take, but probably not very long. Drop
No,
in the
no,
Holy
it'll
See,
only be about an hour
pick you
flight.
up, and go.
Yeah, I might be up for that. That'd be, and I really do appreciate the offer. Regardless which way it ends up panning out, I definitely think that that'll be the goal, is trying to set that up for between now and the end of 2026. We can make that happen because it'd be super cool. And then I'd love to pick Cash's brain about his 6mm 284. Which, funny enough, I saw he's been taking his son out shooting with it, and me and him were chatting about it, and I guess his son basically has claimed it as his own.
Oh yeah, that's such a cool build. Absolutely cool build. And that cartridge is absolutely amazing. I was there when he shot, I think his furthest one was like 800 and something yards. So it was crazy. And then his kid was smoking them past 600 right and left. And we're talking about Badgers. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. I cannot wait to get it up in the mountains for some super long range rock chuck. It's just going to be fantastic. And I always say it, every rifle and every cartridge is a Varmint cartridge. Just depends on what you want to shoot out of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No. You definitely don't need some custom caliber to mess around and shoot varmints. You can turn anything into a varmint gun.
Oh yeah, we've got some great rock chuck video on YouTube of a 6.5 300 Weatherby. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That rifle, I've never actually shot one personally. I've seen a video. Funny enough, there's a group of guys out of Southern Oregon, and they go and do the spring bear hunting all the time. One of them had a 6.5 by 300 Weatherby built, and he shot a bear out of a tree at like 600 yards across canyon shot. That was one of the craziest shots I've ever seen on film. That 6.5 by 300 Weatherby put a hole in it about the size of a soccer ball. I mean, it looked insane. So I can't imagine you guys using that for varmints.
Oh yeah, we used the right projectile, so they did blow up on impact. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, yeah, get you out here, get you into some different stuff, and I always love bringing guys up to the mountains where you're dealing with updrafts and crosswinds and mirage from the rocks and everything. It makes for such challenging but fun shooting, especially at longer range. It is something that will definitely mess with your brain, until it clicks and you know what to do. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I'm always trying to learn, so I would love to learn a lot of that mountain shooting stuff, and it'd be cool to hang out with you guys and chit chat about rifles and stuff. So we'll definitely make that happen. Before we take off, where are the places people can look out for all this stuff that's upcoming, or hopefully is going to launch in the next 3 weeks?
Varminter.com. That's Varminter Magazine. And then Varminter right now is still on Instagram and still on Facebook. And then 24 Varminter, basically we are on Instagram under 24 Varminter, but everything that we publish, everything like that will be on Varminter, but mainly it will be on smallcaliberforum.com. And if you go to varminter.com, in the menu right at the top, there is a link to Small Caliber Forum, and you can head over there, join up. There's information on that, but it's also a forum that is absolutely loaded with Wildcat guys, small caliber guys, that we've all kind of come from all these different sites that have shut down. And so I decided, let me make this forum that will be there forever. So when I'm dead and gone, it will still be going. So it's a blast, and we'll have everything on there. And one of the reasons why we're putting it on there is it's a full discussion forum. So you can add opinions, ask questions, see real-time data being published. It's just a lot better than waiting for the next article to come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. Having a place you can actually go chat with people, post a question, get answers from other shooters is all super beneficial. And the new forum is great. Funny enough, talking about ones that shut down, for me out here, Calguns. Calguns now is basically shut down, inoperable. So I've been going on the small caliber forum and looking at some reloading data, looking up other cartridges and stuff like that. I was trying to find some guys talking about the 2223 Ackley the last time I was on there. That'll be one of my next cartridges I want to play with.
Yep. Well, there's some ones out there, but the problem is feeding through all the information to where you get the correct information. And like I said, say to people all the time, just be careful. Don't jump on a load that you find on the internet. I mean, honestly, and this is truth beyond truth. Some guy posted up loads that he went through and used AI to come up with. And before asking anybody about it or checking it, he loaded them and had major issues with them. And that was on a Facebook group. So
that is incredible.
Be careful.
Wow, that is incredible. I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
Now, if you were able to have like an AI version of like Gordon's tool or something like that, I'd be like, okay, like that's kind of cool, but yeah, that's insane.
You can ask Cash when you talk to him about the 6284, but he uses one that's been around for a long time. It only goes out of disc, and he actually built the 24 Varminter cartridge in there. So if you have it, you can actually, quick load. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's the most common one.
Find the 24 Varminter in quick load and go ahead and get information from there and things like that. So assuming they added it to their latest one, but if not, the file can always be sent from Cache. But again, we're not just sending it out willy-nilly. We're sending it to people who are looking hard at buying, because we want to be careful that we vet people. We don't want to run into a 22 arc situation where people blame barrels, people blamed, everything but themselves when things didn't go right. And after everything shook out and all that, it was mainly user error, which was too bad, but there you go.
And if you guys want to research the fiasco that Eric's talking about, feel free to Google it. But yeah, I think that is awesome that you guys care enough to actually hear people out. And I hope the listeners understand that you're not saying this to be, like rude or anything like that. But
not at all.
It's right. It is important, and I do appreciate this. Along with Eric and Cash, along with other gunsmiths who talk with guys through their build, through the cartridge they're choosing, so that you don't end up with something that you realistically can't use, don't like, or have basically unrealistic expectations for the cartridge. So I think that's super stand-up that you guys are trying to do that and vet people before they buy it, because let's be honest, if you guys were trying to make money, you'd be trying to sell these to every single person who wanted one, saying it was the latest and greatest thing. And that's not what you guys are doing. You guys are doing this from a hunter's perspective, and you guys, proudly put your name on it. And I think it's awesome the way that you guys are doing it.
Yeah, and I'll leave it with this. At the end of the day, we educate people. So if you are new and you want to get into this stuff, not a problem. Let's talk. Get on the forums. Let's chat. Let's answer some of your questions. Let's get you going, because it helps all of us in the long run to have as many hand loaders out there as possible. Yes,
or people in the shooting sport in general. More people, we can increase that population, the better, right? It's that's it. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Eric. I really, really appreciate you having or you joining me. And for anyone who's listening, please go check out the Varminter.com, and please go check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And a lot of the information we talked about previously is on some of their prior YouTube videos. There's amazing content, and again, just plethora of knowledge between Eric and his other writers that make up the group. I really, really do appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and keep going. I absolutely love this format.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, Eric. Thank you.